Have you ever wondered what would have happened if Isagi had Metavision before entering bluelock? How overpowered would he be, and how much easier would his path to becoming the best striker be? Continue watching this video to find out. But what if I told you that Isagi actually had Metavision since the start? He was just doing it subconsciously. There are numerous instances where he used it prior to the Neo Egoist League, such as when he could smell goals like the dog that he is, and during his shot against Japan's U20. Cut to a flashback scene of Isagi as a child, where he discovers his Metavision for the first time. He is playing with a group of kids on a dirt field, and he suddenly sees the field light up with lines and arrows, showing him the movements of the other players. Isagi wonders what he is witnessing, as he can see everything so clearly. Isagi starts to move in sync with the lines and arrows, dodging other players effortlessly and making precise passes. A few years pass by wherein Isagi is playing on a high school football team. He is struggling to keep up with the other players, often getting knocked over or missing passes. In reality, it's a bit different. Even with his Metavision, he still has to work hard to keep up with everyone else. It's not a magic power that guarantees success. The coach asks Isagi what's going on, as he isn't playing up to his potential. Isagi says that he can see everything clearly, but he still can't keep up with everybody else. So his coach asks him how he actually is using his Metavision. This confuses Isagi, but then his coach makes him reflect. Are you seeing what's happening on the field, or are you analyzing it? Are you looking for patterns in your opponent's movements, or ways to exploit their weaknesses? Isagi realizes that he has not been using his Metavision to full effect. He needs to use it more strategically. It then cuts to a scene of Isagi practicing alone on the field. He is using his Metavision to analyze his own movements, looking for areas where he can improve. He realized that his Metavision is not just a tool to see what's happening around him. It's also a way to analyze his own movements to make sure that he is always in the right position. Cut to a montage of Isagi playing in various matches, using his Metavision to great effect. He is able to anticipate opponents' movements before they even make them, making precise passes and scoring goals. With Metavision, Isagi was able to see the game in a whole new way. He could quickly identify his opponent's strengths and weaknesses, and adjust his own movements accordingly. Isagi's Metavision had given him the edge he needed to succeed. But there were still many challenges ahead. Would the side effects of Metavision come back to bite him? We are now brought back to the start of Episode 1, the National High School Football Qualifiers, taking place between Ichinan High School and Matsukaze High School, with the current score being 0-1 in favor of Kira and Matsukaze High School. With Isagi's team being down, he finally decides to use his Metavision throughout the rest of the game. He passes instantly to his teammate Tama, without any hesitation. As his teammate starts to get blocked by a group of defenders, he passes a route that would get him open to score a goal. He calls for the ball back as he is wide open. Tama passes the ball to Isagi, and we eventually avoid this scenario right here. The score is now tied 1-1. However, Kira is still optimistic that his team can still win the game. He makes a couple of 1-2 passes with his teammates, but it is then intercepted by Isagi, who saw the whole play coming from a mile away. Isagi then heads towards the other side and scores the winning goal as they qualify for nationals. Kira is then upset and having a crisis on whether he made the right play or not. Here, we can see that Kira doesn't really have the egoism in him and believes in team play. Despite this match's result, they are both still invited to the Blue Lock project. As the next day comes, Isagi arrives at the Japan Football Union building and encounters Kira. Immediately, Isagi recognizes Kira and talks to him. Isagi says that he remembers him since he is quite a player, since Kira was the one who scored the only goal for their team. Isagi says to him that he has an impressive field perspective and high football IQ, but mentions that sometimes he has to be a bit selfish when it comes to certain situations. Upon entering the facility, Isagi and Kira saw several players also waiting in the area. Then, Ego Jinpachi appears and begins his speech. He tells the players that they are chosen based on his criteria alone. Ego says that the losing player's football career is over whenever they lose. Ego further emphasizes that if anyone manages to defeat all 299 players and be the last one remaining, the last player standing will become the best striker in the world. Shocked by what Ego said, Kira disagrees and says that their current teams are their priority. He states that he cannot accept those terms mentioned. After Kira voiced his opinions, all the other players agreed except for Isagi, who wasn't surprised by what he said. As the gates were opened, Isagi was still the first one to enter without any hesitation. Ego then announces a game of tag, where the time limit is 136 seconds, and whoever is hit when the timer runs out will be removed from the team. The first it is the lowest among the team, which is Gurimo Igarashi. In this case, the rankings would be different with Isagi moving to the number 1 spot in Team Z and Kira at number 2, while the rest of the rankings follow. The game of tag will provide Igo a great insight on the selfishness lurking behind the strikers. The first half of what happens in tag would just be the same as what actually happened in the manga up until right before Isagi gets hit by Kunigami. So instead of Igarashi headlocking Isagi, he headlocks Kira instead. This time, Kira gets hit and becomes the it. Kira tries to get payback by targeting Igarashi. Bachara is then launched by Kunigami, and this leads to Igarashi spraining his ankle once again. Kira thinks about tagging Igarashi or not, since he wanted to get Isagi eliminated instead after losing to him. So deep inside, he has some hard feelings. However, Bachara intervenes and steals the ball from him and says that he shouldn't go for somebody weaker than him. Bachara then chases Isagi, but he senses an aura of rage coming from Kira, and so he passes it to Kira, hoping to eliminate Isagi. Kira then looks at the ball in the air, thinking whether or not getting revenge on Isagi is the right thing to do. But then, Isagi sees the play coming, and comes up right as the ball is about to reach Kira. He then intervenes and uses his direct shot to hit Kira right in the face. Bachara is then surprised as he realizes that Isagi was the monster all along. As the whistle blows, Isagi then tells Kira that his hesitation and undeveloped ego is what got him eliminated. He not only hesitated once, but twice in this game of tag, wherein he had multiple chances to survive. So yes, Isagi makes Kira his dog once again, especially with the use of Metavision. Now, moving on to the first selection, Team Z eventually becomes undefeated. I will not be going into too much detail about each match, so I don't end up spending 30 minutes about how Isagi embarrasses the rest of the teams. I will say though, that Baro and Team X would still be the team that gives Team Z a run for their money. Baro's individual skills and unpredictability would counter Isagi's defensive Metavision, especially since Isagi was overwhelmed by Baro's level 0 team play. However, the offensive side of his Metavision would make up for it, and set not only himself up, but his teammates as well for success. This overusage of Metavision would lead to Isagi being fatigued mid-game, and he would have to rely more on his teammates, such as Kunigami who uses his powerful left-footed mid-range shot. Isagi then realizes that he is not capable of using Metavision too much, as it takes a really heavy toll on him. Regarding the match between Team Z and Team Y, I believe that it won't really make a big difference, especially with Nico's vision that may slightly counter Isagi's plays at first. However, the outcome would essentially just remain the same. Therefore, we get to see this scene once again. Now, the match against Team W, however, would be pretty interesting. With Isagi having Metavision and winning their past games, this would lead to Kuon not having to betray Team Z. And without Team Z being on the verge of losing, Shigiri wouldn't awaken and we wouldn't see his weapon. But this game would still be pretty one-sided in favor of Team Z, as Isagi heavily reads the Wanema brothers' plays. Lastly, the match between Team Z and Team V. The match between the wits of Isagi and Ryo would surely be interesting. In this game, we were able to see Nagi evolve and act on his own after seeing Ryo get locked up by this dude. However, due to Isagi's Metavision and amazing plays, we see Ryo evolving instead when it comes to his playmaking, giving Team Z a harder time to win. Although, we eventually see Isagi's Metavision overpower Ryo as it is miles above his sense of vision. Isagi then positions himself to receive a pass from Bachara and score the dagger against Team V. Ryo then aspires to become a better player, and Nagi once again is enticed to play with Isagi in the future. In the end of the first selection, Team Z passes through the second selection while being undefeated. All of Team Z celebrate for their victory, but will their dominance end up leading them to complacency? Before the second selection begins, Igo Jinpachi announces to the members of Team Z that they will be undergoing strength training while waiting for the matches from the other wings to finish. However, Isagi doesn't complain as he believes that his training could help him improve his Metavision usage. With Isagi being able to use his Metavision longer, this would allow him to cover up holes that could lead to his downfall mid-game. After the intense training, Igo Jinpachi unites all the players who passed the first selection, and what happens remain the same as in the manga, except that Isagi feels more confident due to his training and because he knows that not all of the players from the other buildings are ranked higher than him. However, his confidence drops as soon as Itoshi Rin is introduced during the first stage of the second selection, wherein he kicked two balls with different trajectories and managed to let them both meet mid-air. It was then revealed that he is related to Saitoshi, a member of the new generation World 11. Some members of Team Z were intimidated because they did not expect players like Rin Itoshi to be in the second selection. However, Isagi is right there to motivate the rest of the team. The first stage of the second selection is an individual match between a striker and bluelock man, a holographic goalkeeper. Players must score 100 goals within 90 minutes to pass within a limited area. After 30 goals, the difficulty increases as more holograms that are stationary are added. After 60 goals, the additional holograms begin moving quickly and the balls that are sent are faster and spinning. As Isagi enters the door, he is greeted by Bluelock Man and is surprised by what he is seeing. However, in this case, we just get the same results and Isagi eventually scores 100 goals against Bluelock Man after some time by finding a new formula to evolve. Isagi clears the first stage and finally enters the next stage. He notices that the rest of Team Z have not yet cleared the first stage up until Barcha arrives a few moments after Isagi enters. They think about who their third player would be, but they are suddenly interrupted by Nagi, who wants to play with Isagi since he thinks that Isagi was the best player during the match of Team Z against Team V. However, Isagi declines Nagi's offer to join them as he wants to play with Barcha rather than the other duo. Nagi then says that he will join Isagi instead without any hesitation. Ryo is frustrated as Nagi is leaving him even after he did his best against Team Z. Ryo then vows to devour Isagi no matter what. The trio are now in the waiting room for the next stage and they come across Itoshi Rin and the rest of the top 3. They then agree to play against each other. This time, the match goes entirely different due to Isagi's Metavision and his training prior to the second selection. The match was going back and forth due to the individual strength of the top 3. However, Isagi's Metavision was the key factor to outsmarting Itoshi Rin. Isagi was able to create amazing chemical reactions with Bachara and set up Nagi multiple times that allowed him to use his creativity. But the match was still very close as it all came to luck in the end. Bachara was dribbling past Tokimitsu and even Ryu, but Itoshi Rin decided to press him as he realized that he was feeling it and was not going to pass. He made the right call as he did indeed shoot, but it bounces off the goalpost. However, Isagi was right there where the ball landed and he performed his signature direct shot to give his team the win. Isagi created his own luck by judging the best position to be in during that play. Itoshi Rin had never felt the feeling of defeat up until he faced Isagi and this frustrated him. However, Isagi chose Rin to join his team as he was a really good player and because of course, he is the #1 player in Bluelock. Or at least he was. He then vowed to devour Isagi and told him that he was going to be by his side as he becomes the #1 in the world. This would lead to a future back and forth rivalry between Isagi and Rin instead of Baro, at least for now. Now, they enter the potentially last stage wherein it is a match between teams of 4. Whoever wins this will advance to the third selection. However, there is still nobody in the waiting area as they are the first team to arrive out of everybody. Days after, a team enters and it consists of Ryo, Kunigami, Chigiri, and Baro. Ryo and the rest challenge Isagi to a match, and we will finally get to see a rematch between the wits of Isagi and Ryo. Let's talk first about how they were able to get here. After Ryo was left behind by Nagi, he was picked up by both Kunigami and Chigiri. Ryo was pretty hesitant at first, since he did not know what Chigiri was capable of, since he did not really do much. But he eventually joined them since they were the ones that beat him, and he knows that he could strive with those 3. Then, they come across Baro, Naruhaya, and Aomori's Messi, Nishioka. To Ryo, it seemed like a pretty even matchup, and so both teams agreed to play against each other. As the match started, Baro was completely dominating the field by himself with the support of Nishioka and Naruhaya. Baro's level was just too high, and so he was devouring Kunigami. This would lead to Chigiri's awakening. As Baro was charging with the ball on the way for the winning goal, Chigiri would break out of his chains and outpace Baro, leading to the ball getting stolen by Chigiri. He would then run all the way to the other side of the field while passing every defender and scoring a goal all by himself. His pace would be exploited as it was very hard to deal with, and Baro was the only person who was capable of keeping up. Ryo then stood corrected as it was not an even matchup as Chigiri's abilities were way above everybody's expectations. The match would end 5-4 in favor of Kunigami and the rest. Some may think that Aomori's Messi would have been chosen. However, Ryo believed that Baro had some serious talent and that he might be more useful in certain situations as he brings more firepower. They're just going to have to figure out a way to make it work, just like how Ryo was able to organize the chaos happening within Team B during the start of the first selection. Going back to the current match, this would be an absolute walk in the park if I'm being honest. This match would mainly be about Isagi and Rin devouring each other in order to build a stronger rivalry that may impact the story in the future, especially during the U20 arc. I will say though that Baro's unpredictability will allow him to devour Isagi once again and help his team put up a fight. Chiguri's speed would surprise everybody, and he eventually gets a goal of his own as well. I honestly like Chiguri's awakening better during the match against Team W, as it fits the story better. Kunigami would not be able to score, especially without the help of Ryo, as he would still get absolutely read by Isagi or even Itoshi Rin. This would allow Nagi to prove his point, and Ryo starts to think whether Nagi was really right about choosing Isagi over him. The match would end 5-2 in a dominating fashion, shown by Isagi and the rest. Baro would then be chosen due to Isagi not being able to read his place, and this proved to be very vital during his substitution into the Blue Lock vs U20 match. As Isagi and the rest clear the second selection, Igo Jinpachi lets them know that they will be having an exhibition match against the World 5. However, it would be no surprise that they eventually get destroyed despite Isagi having Metavision. He would be one of the only people to actually put up a fight against them aside from Itoshi Rin. The World 5 acknowledged Isagi's ability to read the field, as he was actually able to counter a few of their plays. But at the same time, they weren't really trying that hard. So just imagine how strong the World 5 really are. After the match, all the players who passed the second selection were then gathered. We see the 7 teams that made it through, such as Isagi's team, who were the first to make it through. I will not be mentioning the rest of the players who went past the second stage, since I have another question that I would like to ask you guys. Who do you think is the player who will be entering the wildcard in this scenario? Without Kunigami becoming the wildcard, we are open to multiple options and scenarios. Igo Jinpachi announces that the second selection has just ended. The clear teams are now told to gather in the central joint room. The first clear team comes through with Isagi, Rin, Nagi, Baro, and Bachra. The second clear team would consist of Tokimitsu, Aryu, Shido, Zantetsu, and Kiora. Now, how would this team be made? Tokimitsu and Aryu's loss to Isagi would drop them down to the 2v2 stage. This way, they were able to meet Shido and Igarashi during some time. Since Shido wanted to play against high-level players, he did exactly that, as Tokimitsu and Aryu were a part of the top 3 players during the second selection. The rest of the teams would be pretty much the same, except for the 7th clear team. It consists of Corona, Chiguri, Ryo, Nishioka, and last but not least, Kunigami. Due to Kunigami, Ryo, and Chiguri winning their first match in the second selection, it would alter the time when Kunigami came across Shido and Igarashi. Speaking of Igarashi, I had to take out the monk just this once because I felt like he would be too overpowered. Isagi comes up to the trio, and is glad that they were able to make it past the second selection, despite Isagi handing them out an L. Kunigami and Chiguri told Isagi that they were not about to lose to him again. There would be no bad blood between them, especially since Kunigami did not end up taking the fallen hero path. He would continue to become the football hero that he always wanted to be. Ryo has also set aside his anger towards Isagi, as he was finally able to see Isagi as a player who is levels ahead of him. This led him to respect Isagi and strive to become a versatile playmaker that can somehow surpass his football vision in the future. Just like Nagi, Ryo would want to play with Isagi and learn from him, as he believes that he is one of the best players who can help him evolve and enhance his playstyle. With this scenario happening, we would not be able to see Shido's menacing introduction. After this sequence of events, Igo Jinpachi interrupts their happy little fantasy. He announces that instead of picking 5 of the remaining players as it should have been, plans have changed. Igo Jinpachi proposed to the Japan Football Union a match between the players in Blue Lock and the Japan U20 team. Therefore, the top 6 players would then be paired up and broken into 3 teams: Team A, Team B, and Team C. The rest of the 29 strikers must then decide whose team they will play on in order to showcase and prove their skills in an attempt to be chosen for the Blue Lock 11 and get to play against the Japan U20. Each player only has 1 game to prove themselves, but due to the odd number of players left, someone has the chance to prove their skills in 2 games. That honor goes to the top 7th player in Blue Lock, who would be Nagi. The top 6 players during this selection would consist of Isagi at number 1, Rin at number 2, Shido at number 3, Karasu at number 4, Otoya at number 5, and Yukimiya at number 6. This would lead us with these pairs: Isagi and Rin teaming up once again in Team A, Shido and Karasu in Team B, and Otoya and Yukimiya in Team C. The rest of the players would basically be in the same team as they were in, except for some of the mentioned top 6 players and Ryo. Ryo would choose Team A instead of Team C with Nagi, since he wants to be able to play with Isagi and develop as a player. The first match would still be Team A versus Team B. Alongside Isagi and Rin would be Bachra, Nanase, and Hiyori. Now, this would be the match wherein Shido would shine the most. With Karasu acting as the beating heart of Team B, he he was able to organize the whole offense and defense of their team. He was able to utilize Chigiri with his speed to break past Team A's defenses and particularly use Shido to his utmost potential and to show his true striker genes. Shido would then trash talk Isagi and it would end up becoming a back and forth between them. However, Isagi would not let it slow him down, and so he was able to keep up with Shido with the help of Barcha. Isagi then found ways to counter Karasu's defensive setups as he slipped past, and he would score his share of goals as well. Despite this, Shido still had more goals as he scored every goal so far for Team B with 4 goals. Isagi had scored 2 goals, while Rin had scored 2 goals as well. With the game tied at 4-4, there would be a never-ending rally of defensive stops and failed counterattacks between Karasu and Isagi. In the end, Hiyori makes the winning play with his pass to Isagi to allow Team A to take the victory 5-4. In the second match, Isagi was able to dominate the game with the help of Ryo's playmaking. However, Nagi's traps and Yukimiya's gyro shot would give them a hard time. Now, this is the time wherein Ryo's chameleon ability made its debut. He not only improved as a playmaker, but as a striker as well. He was able to show Nagi that he could catch up to him soon. Lastly, the third match would be a rematch between Team A and Team B. This match would ultimately be a close match once again. Prior to this match, Shido is currently ahead of Isagi when it comes to goals by 2. Fast forward to the end, the same situation pretty much happens in the end, but with multiple defensive stops and failed counterattacks happening. With this, tension builds between both teams, especially between Isagi and Shido. With the match tied at 4-4, Isagi ends it once again with his goal. However, he is still down when it comes to the number of goals. Although Shido's behavior may not have been the best, it was not enough to start an altercation between the two, especially since Shido actually respects Isagi. So, Shido does not end up getting locked up. Although it was a close call, he was still chosen by Itoshi's side due to his egoism, style of play, and because he simply scored the most goals despite the loss. I will not be discussing the U20 match play by play since it would take too long. I will just be mentioning the main points of what occurs. With Isagi's early Metavision development and consistent usage, he was able to score multiple goals and win against Japan's U20 team in a comfortable fashion, as he also outplayed Itoshi's side during multiple occasions that it even made him sweat and forced him to get serious sometime in the middle of the match. Itoshi Rin's awakening would still happen and create a huge impact in the result. In the end, Sai admits that Isagi was truly the better player compared to Shido. So, he approaches Isagi and mentions that he is very close to being the level of the new Gen 11 and that he lacks just one piece. This would eventually set up flame in Rin and drive him to want to destroy Isagi even more. Aside from Rin, Isagi will have to face somebody else who wants to completely destroy him. And yup, it's Kira. Now, you might be wondering why he would enter the wildcard when he was just used as a symbol for Japanese football. Well, due to Isagi destroying him twice, he was finally able to realize that his ideology was not the right one for him, especially with his skill set. Let's not forget that he was one of the best U18 players in Japan prior to entering bluelock. However, with chapter 228 and other chapters coming, I could be wrong. Kira could still be a fraud. So, with the bluelock project, it is likely that he does not fit the description anymore, especially with Isagi's performance during the U20 match. Now, Kira looks to claim back that title. Despite his good nature, he seems to have a twisted side as shown when he understandably snapped after losing in the admission exam and was virtually volatile, blaming his fellow competitors like Isagi or Bachira for his own failings, emphasizing how incapable he is of even acknowledging his own deficiencies and weaknesses. Isagi showed him the way to an egoist approach, which was what Ego Jinpachi said he was lacking as a striker. After the Neo Egoist League is announced, the atmosphere inside bluelock changes. The players are tense, excited, and ready for the next stage. Everyone now has to choose a team to join. Just like the original timeline, Isagi chooses Bastard Munchen again because he feels like it complements his style. But this time, he's not just another player. He's the top-ranked striker in bluelock. The boy with Metavision, the one who beat Rin and Shido, is now the face of the project. Just when it seems like everything is set, something unexpected happens. The lights dim, a spotlight turns on, the screen flashes, and a figure slowly walks out. It's Kira, the same Kira who was eliminated in the beginning. The room goes silent. This shocks the rest of Team Z, and they demand an explanation from Ego about it. Ego explains that after Kira was eliminated, he saw something in him, a spark. So, he gave Kira a second chance through a secret training program called the Wildcard Entry. While the others were competing, Kira was training, far away from the spotlight. In the wildcard, things were tough. In the beginning, we saw how Kira relied a lot on his teammates and eventually lost the final against Isagi's team. However, in the wildcard, Kira had no teammates, no breaks, and no one to cheer him on. He was pushed harder than ever before. Every day, he was tested, physically and mentally. Now, Kira has returned, but he's not the same player anymore. After getting his butt whooped by Isagi twice, Kira is finally back, and this time around, he wants revenge. Isagi and the others approach him, but he completely ignores them, just like a Chad. He doesn't seem like the same Kira he used to be. The story progresses as the other players choose their respective teams. Just like the original timeline, Rin and Shido choose PXG, Reo and Nagi choose Manshine City, and Barcha chooses FC Barcha. Kira also gets placed in Bastard Munchen, and this is what he actually wanted to get his revenge. The room falls silent as Kira steps forward, his gaze fixed on Isagi. Without uttering a word, his choice speaks volumes. Gone is the composed and sportsmanlike player from before. In his place stands someone who has endured rigorous training and isolation, emerging with a newfound intensity and determination. As the selections conclude, the stage is set for an intense rivalry. Isagi, the top-rated player, now faces a formidable opponent, not just in skill, but in personal history. The upcoming matches in the NEL promise not only high-level football, but also a clash of evolved philosophies and renewed ambitions. Following all this, Isagi and the others head to their respective teams, where they will train with them under the supervision of their masters. The Blue Lock players finally arrive at the training grounds of Bastard Munchen, one of the top clubs in the world. It's cold and intense, and feels like a battlefield rather than a football facility. Isagi, Kira, and Kunigami walk through the gates together, each carrying their own ambition and weight. For Isagi, this is the next stage of evolution. For Kunigami, a second chance. And for Kira, it's the path to proving he's the best. As soon as they arrive, they're thrown into a series of brutal physical challenges. From high-speed sprints to strength tests and endurance drills, there's no time to rest. And here, Isagi begins to struggle. Unlike the others, he doesn't have a powerful body or elite-level stamina. His strength is in reading the game with Metavision, but none of that helps in these physical tests. No vision can save you when you're running until your legs give out. Kira, on the other hand, excels. His training in the wildcard has clearly paid off. He breezes through the drills with calm focus. His body moves like a machine, efficient and sharp. When paired up with Isagi in a strength test, he easily overpowers him, barely breaking a sweat. But Isagi doesn't quit. He keeps pushing forward. He knows that this stage isn't about talent, it's about surviving. Later that day, as the team settles in, a figure steps onto the field with an air of arrogance and style. Bright blonde hair, confident eyes, and a smirk that says he owns the place. It's Michael Kaiser, the genius striker and the ace of Bastard Munchen. He walks straight up to Isagi. "So you're the one they're all talking about," Kaiser says. "Blue Lock's number one." Isagi doesn't respond, but Kaiser isn't one to walk away quietly. He provokes him, pokes at him, trying to get a reaction. A spark. Isagi remains calm, but the tension builds. Just when things start to get serious, Noah steps in. The entire room falls silent. Noah doesn't raise his voice, but his presence alone commands attention. With a simple sentence, he breaks the rising tension. "Save it for the field." He then brings everyone together and reveals the updated player rankings. The list shocks Isagi. Despite being the top-rated player in Blue Lock, he's not in the top 10 of Bastard Munchen. Instead, Kira is ranked number 3, earning recognition for his elite physical form and balanced play. His growth in the wildcard program made him a monster. Kunigami ranks number 8. His rebuilt body and shooting power give him the tools to stand out. Isagi is nowhere near them. He clenches his fists, not out of frustration, but motivation. He knows where he is lacking, and he's ready to close the gap. This is Bastard Munchen. This is where the real fight begins. Following this, the practice sessions begin. In the original timeline, Isagi gets dominated by Kaiser's physicality, but he makes up for it for using his Metavision and shocks everyone. They knew Isagi was the ace of Blue Lock, but they were not expecting him to be this good. He completely dominated the field with his Metavision, and the only thing he lacked was physicality. Throughout this training session, he improves that as well. It is finally time for the first match against Barcha's FC Barcha. In the original timeline, Isagi wasn't a member of the starting 11, as his level was way too low. However, in this timeline, he has managed to impress all of them, including Noah. Kira, on the other hand, is also a member of the starting 11 owing to his insane skills. The match between Bastard Munchen and FC Barcha begins with high tension. Isagi, now a starter, tries to take control of the game using Metavision, but things don't go smoothly. Both Kaiser and Kira refuse to work with him. Kaiser, out of pride, and Kira, still holding a grudge, sees Isagi as a rival. They both block his plays, leaving him isolated despite being able to read the game perfectly. Sensing the disconnection, Barcha strikes first. Using his wild dribbling and creativity, he slips through the gaps and scores the opening goal. Isagi saw it coming, but no one listened. Soon after, Kaiser responds with a brilliant goal, assisted by Ness, making it 1-1. At this point, Kaiser realized something strange. He noticed that Isagi was always in perfect positions to receive a pass and score a goal himself. Even the goal he scored, Isagi had completely read all his movements and knew that a goal is coming. This shocks him and Ness. The match becomes a deadlock. Isagi continues reading the field like a genius, but his lack of physical strength stops him from finishing plays by himself. He becomes a commander with no one to follow his orders until the second half. Kira is subbed off, and in comes Kunigami. The moment he steps onto the field, Isagi finally has someone who trusts his vision. At the same time, Noah and Lavenho also sub in, each scoring a goal to make it 2-2. With the match nearing its end, Isagi activates everything: Metavision, positioning, timing, and works with Kunigami to set up the final attack. Kunigami smashes forward, drawing defenders in, then drops the ball back to Isagi. With perfect timing, Isagi takes the shot. Goal! 3-2. Bastard Munchen wins. Kaiser watches with new respect. Kira sits quietly, his expression unreadable. And Barcha? He smiles, because now he knows the real challenge has begun. With this, Isagi has definitely marked his presence in the NEL and showed everyone why he is the ace of bluelock. Even though Isagi used to dominate everything in bluelock, that is not the case in the NEL, with players like Kaiser, Lavenho, and even Kira blocking his way. Despite his Metavision, it will still take him some time to completely dominate the matches. Their next match is against Manshine City, and at this point, Kaiser has realized just how huge a threat Isagi truly is. Isagi, however, knows that there's no one who can fully support him. Even though he can see everything with Metavision, his physicality does not allow him to score goals by himself. We saw this in the previous match as well when Kunigami got subbed in. Isagi's vision improved a lot. He played much better and even scored a goal himself. This time, things are looking slightly better for him as both Hiyori and Kunigami will start the game for Bastard Munchen. The match begins, and Ryo immediately takes control of the field. With Chris Prince's training and his copy ability, he manages to bypass even Isagi, taking him by surprise. Ryo attempts to score his own goal by copying Rin's shot, but misses slightly. However, Chigiri takes advantage of this and scores a perfect goal. Isagi immediately realizes that they have grown a lot, but this is where their domination ends. From that point onward, Isagi reads every movement. He knows that Ryo is insanely dangerous and prevents the ball from reaching him. With Hiyori by his side, Isagi makes his way toward the opposing box. He knows that Kaiser will try to stop him, so instead of going for the goal himself, he decides to use others. He passes the ball to Hiyori on the wing. As Hiyori crosses the ball, it looks like it was aimed at Isagi. Kaiser prepares to devour him, but to everyone's surprise, Isagi plays a dummy and lets the ball pass through to Kunigami, who is also starting the match. Kunigami smashes it in, opening the scoring for Bastard Munchen. The game continues as Ryo takes charge in midfield. Knowing that Isagi will likely mark Nagi, he plays a long ball toward Chigiri on the wing. Chigiri rushes to his sweet spot to take the shot. Ness blocks his shooting path, thinking he has stopped him, but Chigiri was waiting for this. He backheels a pass to Ryo, who dribbles past a defender and sends a lofted ball toward Nagi. Nagi controls it beautifully, and just as he is about to shoot, Isagi appears out of nowhere and steals the ball cleanly between his legs. This shocks Ryo, who never expected Isagi to read that attack pattern. Isagi quickly launches a long ball toward Hiyori, who links up with Kunigami to score another goal. At this point, Isagi is completely controlling the game, which pisses off Kaiser. Chris Prince decides to sub himself in alongside Noah. However, Chris Prince gets humiliated by Isagi in this timeline as well. The final goal comes from Kaiser, who had been silently waiting for his opportunity. The match ends with Bastard Munchen taking a dominant 3-1 victory. After this, it is time for the ranking reveal. In the original timeline, Isagi's bid was 50 million after this match, and he was placed at number 4. Baro was number 1, and Nagi was number 2. However, things are different this time. People have seen how Isagi controls the entire game, and he now has a bid of 90 million, placing him just below Barrow. The only reason he is not number 1 is his lack of goals. Isagi has scored only 1 goal in 2 matches so far. Nagi has dropped down since he failed to score in the previous match. Their next match is against the Ubers, who are known for their strong defense and structure. It is quite obvious that Lorenzo will heavily mark Kaiser and make it difficult for him to score. Kira was benched in the previous match, but he is starting now as well. The match begins as Kaiser and Ness make their way to the opposite box, but Kaiser is intercepted by Lorenzo, who tackles him and steals the ball immediately. Lorenzo dribbles past several players and plays a perfect pass to Barrow, who scores the opening goal for the Ubers. Even though Isagi had read Barrow's movements, he could not stop this insane attack. However, he knows that Lorenzo's busy marking Kaiser, which means he can control the game more freely. But there's a huge hurdle ahead. Both Kira and Barrow are targeting Isagi. It will not be easy for him to score a goal himself, but Isagi knows what to do. He has several pawns on the field as well. He makes his way toward the opposite box, completely dominating the midfield alongside Hiyori. He passes the ball to Kunigami, whose shooting range is blocked by Aiku. Isagi uses his off-the-ball movements to get into a perfect position as Kunigami passes the ball to him. However, Kira was expecting this and tackles him, but Isagi is one step ahead. He switches the ball between his feet and nutmegs Kira to loft a pass toward Hiyori, who cuts inside and shoots the ball straight into the back of the net. Even though they have scored a goal, Isagi is disappointed that he couldn't score one himself. The match continues as the Ubers launch a counterattack with Barrow leading the charge. However, this attack is intercepted by Isagi, who mocks Barrow by saying that he is getting predictable. This allows Kira to score a goal, making it 2-1. After this goal, Lorenzo realizes that Isagi is actually more dangerous than Kaiser and decides to mark him directly. This allows Ubers to make a comeback and score, tying the game at 2-2. Kira is also frustrated that he needed Isagi to score his own goal. Now, with Lorenzo marking him tightly, Isagi has to find another way. Lorenzo sticks to him like glue, cutting off every passing lane and blocking all movements. But Isagi starts to think differently. Instead of trying to escape the marking, he begins to use it against Lorenzo. He moves toward the left side, pulling Lorenzo with him, and signals Hiyori to move inside. Hiyori quickly receives the ball and passes it back to Isagi, who immediately senses a narrow gap in front of him. Before he can move forward, Lorenzo cuts him off again. This time, Isagi stays calm. He flicks the ball behind him to Kunigami, who fires a low shot. The ball gets deflected and bounces right back toward Isagi. Lorenzo lunges forward to clear it, but Isagi is faster. He shifts the ball to his left foot, spins past Lorenzo, and breaks through into the box. Barrow rushes in to block him, but Isagi keeps his focus. Using his perfect vision, he times his shot at the exact moment Barrow steps forward. The ball curves perfectly past Lorenzo's tackle and flies straight into the top corner. Goal. Isagi finally scores his own goal, breaking through Uber's solid defense and Lorenzo's marking. The final whistle blows, and Bastard Munchen secures a narrow 3-2 victory. Isagi has managed to impress everyone with his performance. After scoring a goal and providing an assist in the last match, his bid skyrockets to 130 million, placing him at the number 1 spot. However, he isn't alone there as Hitoshi Rin also holds the same value after scoring 2 goals in his previous match. It is finally time for the most anticipated game between Bastard Munchen and PXG. As the match begins, Isagi immediately takes control of the midfield, but this time, there's someone just as brilliant standing in his way. Charles, a true playmaker on par with Isagi. This will be a battle of minds and precision. Isagi starts strong. Working with Hiyori, he maneuvers through the field, faking a pass toward Kunigami before backheeling the ball to Hiyori. But before it reaches him, Charles reads the play perfectly and intercepts it. Without wasting a second, he launches a long ball toward Rin, who finishes with deadly accuracy, scoring the opening goal for PXG. Isagi clenches his fist in frustration. He realizes that tricking Charles will not be easy, and on top of that, he still has to deal with Kaiser, who refuses to let anyone else shine. Moments later, Kaiser proves his worth. With Ness feeding him a perfect pass, Kaiser unleashes a Kaiser impact, smashing the ball into the top corner. The score is now 1-1. At this point, Isagi decides to rely on no one but himself. He begins orchestrating his movements, reading every angle and anticipating each defender's motion. As he reaches the box, everyone expects another feint or pass, but Isagi surprises them all. He cuts inside and shoots with perfect timing. The ball shoots past the goalkeeper and slams into the net. 2-1 for Bastard Munchen. But PXG is not done yet. Charles calmly regains control of the tempo and threads a brilliant pass towards Shido, who performs an outrageous bicycle kick, leveling the score at 2-2. The game becomes an intense tactical duel. Every attack from Isagi is met by Charles' sharp counters. Time is running out. Then, in the final minutes, Isagi comes up with a genius plan. He pretends to call for the ball from Hiyori, dragging Charles and Rin toward him, but instead of receiving it, he suddenly changes direction, sprinting into the blind spot behind them. Hiyori passes the ball through the narrow gap, and Isagi, instead of shooting it, flicks it behind with a no-look pass. Right there, waiting like a predator, Kaiser bursts through and fires another Kaiser impact straight into the top corner. 3-2, Bastard Munchen wins. As the final whistle blows, Isagi smiles faintly. He didn't score this time, but his plan, his movement, and his vision made the victory possible. Even Kaiser acknowledges him with a nod, a silent admission that the field now belongs to both of them.